Greetings. I'm Rosalind Parks, and thank you for tuning in to this edition of National Network View News. In today's broadcast, NNV News Global View contributor and Final Call staff writer Brian E. Muhammad will provide insight into the life and legacy of Archbishop Desmond Tutu. Afterward, we will be joined by Dr. Akili Muhammad for our weekly medical update. A week-long National Day of Mourning was declared in South Africa after the death of Archbishop Emeritus Desmond Tutu, an icon of Africa and around the world.
Tutu became the first black Archbishop of Cape Town, but his childhood was spent under white South Africa's brutally enforced apartheid system. He campaigned for economic sanctions, and in 1985, when the UK and US were eventually convinced to pull all investments from the country, it crippled the economy, forcing the apartheid regime to reform. He'd been awarded the Nobel Peace Prize a year earlier, which he credited with helping signal the beginning of the end of apartheid. Free elections were held in 1994, and at 63 years old, Tutu cast his first vote.
The hearing of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission is now in session.
He chaired the Truth and Reconciliation Commission to investigate crimes during white minority rule, and later became a critic of a South African government he thought hadn't delivered on his dream.
We dreamt about a society that would be compassionate. A society that really made people feel they mattered.
He'll be remembered for his wit and wisdom, a man who used humour to inspire hope.
There's a lot of awfulness in the world.
Yes, I know.
And most of us know that. But what we don't also recognize is there's a great deal of good.
Joining us to discuss the life and legacy of Archbishop Tutu is NNV Global View contributor Brian E. Muhammad, Final Call News staff writer. Greetings, sir.
Greetings, Sister Rosalind.
Yes, sir. As we reflect on the life and legacy of Archbishop Desmond Tutu, what stands out to you as his most notable achievements?
You know, I think when I think about a man like Desmond Tutu, it's not any one particular achievement of his, and he had many in his 90 years of life, but it was his tenacity to stay the course, his fearlessness, his being able to stay principled while he was under the gun by many, many powerful forces. A man who won the Nobel Peace Prize, and that alone brings its set of politics. You know, if this is what drives you and gives you value, these type of awards. But he stayed the course. He stayed the principle. And people that I've talked to over the course of a couple of days about his life said one thing about him was his consistency. And, you know, and he spared nobody when it came to what he saw as injustices, even in being critical of the African National Congress, the ruling government of South Africa, whom he worked with at the beginning, you know, but he never was one to hold his tongue. And again, he had some very formidable enemies in this world, and he stayed the course every bit of his 90 years of life.
Now, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan issued a statement of reflection on the legacy of Archbishop Tutu. What did the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan reflect in his statement?
You know, the minister talked about the fact that South Africa will achieve this country where people will be together, which is what Bishop Tutu lived for. And he said, even though they have not reached the kind of togetherness that Bishop Tutu worked for, ultimately it will come. And the fact that a man like Bishop Tutu lived and came our way, he brought us closer to that reality. But the minister assured his, those who read the statement that the goal will be achieved, even though, they're still dealing with their issues.
Now, will Archbishop Tutu's legacy and significance as a radical and progressive leader be minimized, just as it was with the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King after his assassination?
That's an excellent question, Sister Rosalind. When great men like Bishop Tutu, principled men who were radical in their thinking, revolutionary in their scope, the enemy always, after they passed off the scene, tried to change the narrative of their lives, because the enemy, who is the perpetrators of injustice in this world, they do not want the kind of accountability that a Bishop Tutu brought to the table. So for future generations to come, and the present generation who may not know the intricacies of Bishop Tutu, but may know his name, they want to water down his legacy. And this has been the pattern. They did it with Nelson Mandela. I mean, look at here in the United States with Malcolm X. They couch him as a quote unquote civil rights leader. Malcolm would not have called himself that. They got him on a postal stamp. How acceptable is that? See, but these are purposeful moves of the enemy so that future generations will not look upon men like Bishop Tutu properly and keep that energy alive for freedom, justice, and equality in this world.
Right. In 2004, Archbishop Tutu spoke at St. Sabina Church in Chicago, Illinois for Palm Sunday Mass. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan also attended. Has Archbishop Tutu also been falsely charged with being anti-Semitic?
Well, yeah, it was interesting, the fact that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and Bishop Tutu shared the same stage. This was a I forget the occasion. It may have been a Palm Sunday or something that Bishop Tutu was actually speaking, and the minister was there. But both men are hated by the most powerful enemies that most leaders in this world can have, and these are the enemies from the Zionist camp, who don't let up. When they brand you anti-Semitic, they keep that lie alive. And I say alive because both Bishop Tutu was falsely charged, and of course we know that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has been falsely charged by these same people for the same reasons. And so, yes, Bishop Tutu was absolutely charged, and that's what I was alluding to earlier, that he took principled positions that he did not allow them to even come near him to break him. And if they came near him, he stepped back to them. And again, he did not die a broken man.
As chair of President Mandela's Truth and Reconciliation Commission, was Archbishop Tutu proactive in uncovering the atrocities committed during apartheid?
Well, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission was set up as a space to hear the atrocities that was done by the perpetrators themselves. Bishop Tutu was chaired that. It was not a perfect commission, because the way it was set up, they allowed the enemy to come in and admit to what they did. And whether they were remorseful or not, I don't know. But they were allowed to come in and state what they did in front of their victims and the families of the many of our people who died during the apartheid system. But the shortcomings of the commission has to be understood. And the main shortcoming is that they were allowed to come in and state, yeah, we did this, but they did it impunity, or what is it called? You know, when they cannot be charged with the crime. So that was the tragedy of it. But that will take another show to really delve into the Truth and Reconciliation Commission and why that was. But so let me just say this about Bishop Tutu and that commission, though, because at the end, the report that they came out was where they did charge white South Africans for the crimes they committed, but they also charged those of us who was fighting the white minority rulers for atrocities that our people committed. And the government, again, the ANC, they did not want that. And there were elements who did not want that. But this was the kind of principled man that Bishop Tutu was. He said, listen, you are my brother, but you were wrong in what you did over here. And you have to be held accountable, or at least it has to be acknowledged that you did that wrong. The same way that we are charging our enemy. Now, many of us don't like that position, but it spoke to, again, the high dignity and principle of a person that Bishop Tutu was.
Okay. Now, the Archbishop used his global platform to speak out on a range of ethical and moral issues, furthering the causes of peace, justice, and human rights in South Africa and around the world. What was Archbishop Tutu's position on Palestine?
He saw it as a grave injustice. And when he went to Palestine in support of the Palestinian people, in connection with the Palestinian people and their cause, he said openly that when he saw the checkpoints where people can't even leave the West Bank and the Palestinian areas to go to work every day without showing their documents, that reminded him of the apartheid system in South Africa, where you had to show documents in order to move around as Black people in your own land. So he compared it to apartheid and said and called it out as such. And the Zionists got upset with him about that, but he was telling the truth. So his position was that to bring about peace, there must be justice. And justice must be based on truth. And so they have to come to terms that no, you have a racist apartheid system against the Palestinian people, again, in their own land. And it must stop. And this is what Bishop Tutu's position was. And again, he caught flack, but he never wavered off it. He died on that point, that principled position.
And finally, Brother Brian, what are some of the other issues he was passionate about? I know we're going to continue to see a lot of postings and things on social media about Archbishop Desmond Tutu. Sure. What are some of the things that we may not know, some of the issues that we may not know much about that he was passionate about?
Yeah, well, he stood out strong against the Iraq War. And he came to the United States on occasions to even be part of the demonstrations against the war. He spoke for the Puerto Rico. His position was that the United States should give Puerto Rico back to the Puerto Ricans. I think one of the other things that maybe a lot of people may not remember is that he was strong on environmental justice. He came out strong against this fossil fuel use, and he came out strong against multinational corporations' greed and the appropriation of the natural resources of the world, that to the degree that it hurt the earth. So he didn't just care about the people of the earth. Bishop Tutu had a love for the creation of Allah that we find in the earth, and he came out strong with that. So I think that may be one area that a lot of people may not readily associate Bishop Tutu with, which was environmental justice.
Brother Brian, I had no idea that he cared as much about the issues that we're facing in our environment as he did for our people. So thank you. That was that was wonderful information to learn, really.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Brother Brian, as always, thank you so much for your insight. We look forward to speaking with you again next week.
Likewise. Thank you, Mr. Rosalind.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Let's pause for announcements from our sponsors. When we return, Dr. Akili will join us for our weekly NNV News medical update. We'll be right back.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Your support helps to combat false media. Cash App NNV News.
AsiaticMinds.com. Online education, helping our children to discover their God-given skills, gifts, talents, and passion that will allow them to see their greatness, as well as the greatness of our people. And upon discovering that greatness, infusing them with the desire to use it for the betterment of themselves, their families, our people, and the world. 2022 through 23 enrollment waiting list open now. Visit AsiaticMinds.com.
Worldwide, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Download the Final Call radio app and take us everywhere. On your phone, on your computer, on your tablet, on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. You can also log on to finalcall.com and click the Listen Live button, or finalcallradio.com. Final Call Radio, the official voice of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam.
Thank you for tuning in to NNV News. Please share your thoughts with us in the comments section below. Follow us on social media at NNV News, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel, National Network View. This is Clifton Muhammad with NNVnews.com.
Welcome back to NNV News. As cases of coronavirus continue to rise all over the world and variants such as Omicron affect the global population, the general outlook for everyday people is concerned. Joining us with an update is NNV News medical contributor Dr. Akili Muhammad of the Ultimate Wellness Group. Greetings, sir. There we go. Dr. Akili, I can hear you now.
Okay, great. How are you, ma'am?
I'm well. Thank you, sir. Dr. Akili, what do you think the long-term possibilities are with booster shots and antiviral pills now available?
You know, it's amazing because I keep trying to look at the current climate and the time that we've been in this pandemic, and I'm trying to foresee what may be coming. And it seems to me like the underlying reality of this pandemic at this point is to make people not have a comfort in their own immune system. And so now we're starting to see that the CDC is starting to suggest the antiviral pills and the injections that they're using when people go into the hospital. You know, they're saying that this one doesn't work for this current mutant. And so it's kind of this reality that seems like they're trying to turn this into something that may be chronic, like a person taking blood pressure medications or taking diabetic medications. It seems as they're trying to push that booster after booster after booster. Take this pill, take this injection, go into the hospital or your doctor's office and get this injection if you wind up getting symptoms. So it seems to me like we're really going away from any type of God-given innate immune system and trying to lean on these big pharma companies to so-called give us the ability to make it through these dangerous times.
During this pandemic, Dr. Akili, how have you concluded the public should determine the quality and capabilities of the medical community?
You know, it's amazing because, you know, there's kind of this like serious divide. You know, it seems to me like most people that I talk to, either they're 100% convinced that this system is completely inappropriate and doesn't have the capabilities of really taking care of people. And then there are people who I think at some point probably had a lot of confidence, and they're starting to see some holes in a system that when this pandemic began, I'm sure they had a lot of confidence in. Right. So that's kind of where I see things going. I think there are many people that are just being further and further convinced that the American medical system is not something they want to be a part of. So they're looking to try to do everything that they can to stay away from it, stay out of hospitals, stay out of doctors' offices, or to find somebody that will at least give some of their thoughts credence. And then I think there are a lot of people, including the actual physicians, nurses, and healthcare workers in these facilities, their confidence is starting to be broken. I'm listening to a lot of doctors in the mainstream as well as personal people that I know that are talking about the number of people that know what they're seeing, but they're so afraid to speak. They're so afraid to mention it amongst their peers. But that type of fear, that type of suppression can only last so long. Somebody's going to produce the reality that more people are going to join together and start speaking out in public. And I think that's going to be woeful for this American medical system.
Yes, sir. And with cases rising all over the world with this latest variant, Omicron, what is your general outlook for everyday people just trying to get a grip on feeling comforted?
Well, I think it goes right back to the last question. You know, I think people have to try to come to a conclusion that if you were given this hope in a shot, whether it was a 2-part shot or a 1-part shot, you were given hope at the end of 2020 going into 2021 that the vaccine was going to be the savior. And here we are going into 2022 from 2021. And many people that have taken the shot are absolutely frustrated that they're getting sick. We're looking at all this sport and play, the basketball teams, the football teams, the soccer teams that are, and even during the baseball season, where all of these people can't play because they're getting infected, yet they're all vaccinated.
Yes.
So we're having I think, kind of a swell of idea where, man, what am I going to do? There's got to be something else. I can't keep relying on this information that seems to change on a consistent basis. You know, I saw a little cartoon that LeBron put out yesterday where I think one person said something about it's the cold, it's the flu, it's COVID. You know what I mean? So there are a lot of little things that are like that are happening from so-called prominent people that at one point were the face of making a decision. You know, LeBron at one point was the face of hesitancy. And now you can see these little statements that he's making. He's not satisfied. He's not convinced. He doesn't have confidence in this system anymore. And so that to me is similar to the majority of people that have taken the shot. And so we'll see what happens. But, you know, I pray that people come more to the holistic side, more to the natural side, more to the herbs and foods and making sure you have your nutrition right, which is proving to be superior than everything else that these people are talking about.
Right. And many scientists are beginning to come up with their own methods or ideas of how we should be approaching these variants. What do you think of this seemingly new approach?
Well, I think it speaks to people becoming more comfortable, right? Because as I said about the medical professionals, they are feeling pressured not to say anything. If they have any frustrations, they want to keep it to themselves. But some of these independent doctors, and I mean people that you find all over the world, and a lot of them are not, and I'm talking about America. Some of them in America aren't from America, but yet they're starting to have a little more courage to say, I don't think this is the best way to do things. If I was in charge of this, I would do it this way. And so you're starting to have more of that. A lot of these popular people on social media have, since the beginning, pretty much tried to just explain the mainstream idea. So their words were mostly in line with the CDC, the FDA, and the government. But now you're starting to see them step out and say something a little different. Now, this is typical with new infections because the same thing happened with HIV. When HIV first came out, most doctors knew nothing about it. And as the years went by, they started saying, okay, this is what I'm seeing in my clinic. This is what we're seeing in this state that may be different from this state or this city. And so that's a natural reality. But I also think that there's starting to be a little more courage and a little more bravery because people are getting tired of what's coming from the so-called leaders and not really having true evidence that what they're saying has true merit.
Right. Now, Dr. Akili, one last thing. With America being the so-called leader in medicine in the world, where do you think the world community will place America's health system in their minds as far as leadership is concerned?
I think that is something that's going to take discrimination on each person's individual desire to learn, right? Because I'm seeing people from all over the world. And even sometimes when you go to their videos, you have to read the captions at the bottom because they're speaking in different languages. But I think those who are aware and those who are trying to learn something to be able to have a little more empowerment in their own health, they're going to look at other places in the world. You look at the Philippines, Thailand, China, Cuba, and many other countries, Madagascar. These countries have done things that have been extremely effective. And although when it comes to media, you continue to see America and Israel as the so-called leaders, the reality that's going on in America and Israel proves that the medical community has no hold on this, as the minister said in the criterion. But, I think as people start to maybe lose confidence in the mainstream media, as they start to lose confidence in what this country is saying, that seems to shift every month or every few weeks, I think people are going to start reaching out to something different. And there will be a swell of new people that will become the leaders of the people and not necessarily the leaders that the mainstream media is starting to push.
Thank you, Dr. Akili. And of course, thank you as always for your insight and the information, the latest information coming out of the medical community. We look forward to speaking with you again next week.
Thank you, ma'am. I look forward to it.
Yes, sir. Thank you for joining us today and tuning into National Network View News. Please share your thoughts with us in the comment section below. Follow us on social media at NNV News, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel, NNV News. This is Rosalind Parks with National Network View News. Good night.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Go to nnvnews.com/donate.